Hello there, it's James B. Welcome to my vodcast every Friday here. And I just came back from Berlin. I'm a little jet lagged, but I'm excited because tonight is the big party at Palais Royale, the Jaymz B swing dance party. Colin Hunter and the Anthony Terpstra Big Band, better known as the Starlight Orchestra. They're performing, so it's big band music for swing dancers. Combo Royale with special guest Alex Pangman. Simon from Swing Toronto brings friends down. There's swing dance lessons. It's going to be a riot. Doors at 7, show at 8. Tonight, Palais Royale. You can get tickets at the door for $40, 20 if you're a student. And what else? You can get information at jazz.fm. All right? So tonight at Lula Lounge, if you want to do some salsa dancing, you've got the Cuban Swag. Yosvani and the Cuban Swag are performing, and DJ Suave and Cafe Cubano. All that's happening tonight at Lula Lounge. And tomorrow, Ricky Franco and the P Crew Orchestra. So that is 2 nights in a row for you people that want to salsa dance and get down. It's so much fun over there. Also, another concert worthy of note, on Thursday they have a tribute to Neo Soul. So if you like soul music, you want to be at Lula Lounge on Thursday. Old Mill Toronto tonight, it's the legendary bass player Dave Young. Now, he played with Oscar Peterson for many, many years. He has been so busy on his own, whether it's a small combo, quintet, the Dave Young Terry Promain octet doing bebop, everything. He's so busy. Well, this time he's playing with an all-star band that includes John Sherwood on piano, Terry Clark on drums, and Mike Murley on sax. Tonight will be outstanding. Tomorrow night, Brian Blade is back with his blues, and he's got a special guest, keyboard wizard Lance Anderson. So Brian Blade and his blues with Lance Anderson on Saturday. And then coming up this week on Wednesday, John McLeod, the great trumpeter, is back. He's with Mark Eisenman on piano, Steve Wallace on bass, and Mark Micklethwaite on drums. And finally on Thursday, Sophia Perlman and Adrian Ferrugia host their jazz party Thursday night at Old Millen's Homesmith Bar. And that is with Lauren Falls on bass and Kelly Jefferson, a master of the saxophone. So all these shows are 7:30 to 10:30, Homesmith Bar, Old Mill Inn, no cover, $20 minimum. Jazz Bistro, tonight and tomorrow, Levon Ichkinian. Levon is a friend of mine. He's very, very talented. He plays everything with strings on it. Multi-instrumentalist from Lebanon. He's Armenian, and he has a ton of fans. He's played on over 150 records. Man, this guy's busy. Numerous awards, all kinds of trophies and awards, accolades. And so that's tonight and tomorrow. And local vocalist Ross Kindler is singing there Sunday at 7 p.m. Ross Kindler is joined by Attila Fish on piano, Jordan O'Connor on bass, and Bob Bruff on sax. And then Monday, November 11th, remember this one, Remembrance Day, Istituto Italiano di Cultura presents Maria Pia di Vito. Tickets are just $10. And you're thinking, why would it only be $10 for a great Italian singer to come here? Well, that's thanks to Istituto Italiano di Cultura. They probably paid for her airfare. Anyway, that'll be cool. A beautiful Italian vocalist on a Monday night. Tuesday, Linda Carone sings. Speaking of beautiful vocalists, this woman picks really cool songs, stuff you don't hear every day. She does a few standards, but mostly they're old songs that you maybe never heard before. And Alex Pangman brought me to see her a couple years ago, and I've been a fan ever since. Very, very unique and beautiful vocalist right there. And what else? David Rebell is there as always, hosting a jazz jam on Wednesday. And Thursday and Friday, Gentian MG Trio. Gentian is going to blow you away with her instrumental music. She reminds me of Brandy Distraft, although she plays piano, not bass, but in the fact that she plays like an old master, but she's actually a young musician. She's very young, beautiful, and her playing is beautiful. In fact, I think ECM will come knocking on her door one day soon and offer her a record deal. The music's gorgeous, and I think you'll really like it. If you don't know her, she's in from Montreal with her trio. You'll be freaking out, I tell you. Thursday and Friday, Jazz Bistro. Now, Hughes Room, tonight and tomorrow, The Songs of Nick Drake. This show has been touring around, playing all different venues over the years. I'm so glad they're at Hughes Room. So many people are involved. I'll just tell you a few. Patricia O'Callaghan, Elizabeth Shepard, Wendy Solomon, Sarah Featherstone. Wow. Okay, there's some guys playing in the band too, but these are all people you don't get to see every day. So this is a very unique thing, and that's happening tonight and tomorrow. And then on Sunday, Jane Bonnet and McKay will take to the stage with some Cuban music. And you can always check out their calendar. There's lots of stuff happening there. HughesRoomLive.com for all the things happening there. Get your tickets, make dinner reservations, and Bob's your uncle, and Betty's your aunt. A quick thank you to Barbarian Steakhouse, 7 Elm Street. I was just in Berlin, as I said, and I had so many good meals. In fact, one of the master chefs of Berlin I interviewed, and I'll be playing that in a little while, a few podcasts away. But when I come home, there's no place like home, and there's no place like Barbarians. Can't wait to get down there and enjoy some seared tuna once again. BarberFinancial.com, Captain Paul Barber, the man with the plan. If you need help with your finances, big or small, call Captain Paul. And thank you to Patreon donors, everyone who donates on Patreon. Some people are doing $5, $10, $20 a month. It means a big difference to me. You get to be a patron of the arts by helping me help others. Basically, I'm here to promote other people, and when you help me, I'm helping them. It's all one big happy circle jerk. Well, no, it's one big happy family. That's what I meant. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Andy Ballentyne. Don't know him well, but I've been a fan for many years, and I'm so excited to speak to him. So let's go now. Hello.
Hey,
Andy Ballentyne. I met you in 1999 in a recording studio. You were working with the Beehive Singers with Heather Bambrick and her crew.
Of course.
Were you arranging on that Beehive record?
I don't think I did any of the
just playing, right?
Yeah. It was, who was the, that was through U of T contacts, I remember.
Right, so Keith Power and that whole gang.
That's the name I was looking for.
Yeah, that whole gang.
Yeah. And I think we played a week at the Senator, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Top of the Senator.
Yeah.
That's how dated this is, because that was a great club.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to start off with your background. Some of the people that taught you composition and arrangements are pretty famous. Steve Lederer worked with Woody Herman.
Yeah.
Did he ever tell you stories about Woody Herman?
You know, not very much. A few little sort of sort of survival on the road stories generally, but I don't remember anything specifically about Woody.
What did you get from Steve when he was teaching you? What did he give you?
He was great. I was thinking about this the other day, that both Steve and Pat LaBarbera, I'm doing this whole thing with my new recording where I'm digging up old vinyl. And I remember, when I first started studying with those guys in kind of the early to mid 80s, it was that transition from LPs to CDs. It was really hard to get good music. There was no internet. So I remember both of those guys, both Steve and Pat, just giving me their vinyl records and saying, go tape it and bring it back next week. And I remember Steve gave me I still have the cassette somewhere, Lockjaw Davis and Gene Ammons. And Pat gave me gave me Coltrane Jazz and Coltrane Sound, which were totally unavailable when I was studying with him. He said,
right, this is not like stealing music. You could not simply ever get this music. It wasn't there.
Because the companies were not going to press any more vinyl because they saw CDs coming. So there was this kind of dead zone.
Right, and CDs weren't doing every record in the world, and there was no computers.
And I was thinking about that. If I had only one copy of this, would I give it to a kid, to take home and tape for a week? So both, I was thinking about Steve the other day and how, trusting and sharing that was.
Yeah.
And Steve, just the depth of just, the roots of the music he had. I remember he had me play bass lines, which I never thought of doing before. He said, okay, we're going to learn all the things you're going to play the bass line. And I still do that with my students, it's such a great skill. So yeah, he was a fabulous, lovely man.
Pat LaBarbera, did he tell you any stories about Buddy Rich?
Oh yeah, Pat's pretty circumspect about some things, but yeah, there were some, honestly,
But he kind of stood up for Buddy a little bit when he was telling me stories, right?
He honestly, obviously had a lot of respect for Buddy. I think, nothing really nasty, or just a lot of respect. I think that's what I always got.
Right. I recall him saying something about how that guy that was thrown off the bus was showing up late and being drunk and holding the band back. And he said it was the wrong way to deal with it, but it was the right thing to do, just the wrong way.
Yeah, I think there's more to that story than meets the ear, shall we say.
Alex Dean and Mike Murley, two other amazing teachers, right?
Yeah.
What did you get from them?
Oh, Alex is stuff. Alex is hyper. He's as hyper now as I'm sure he was when he was 20. And he's just just the enthusiasm. They're always
fearless,
high energy. You can't be like low energy with Alex, you know. And he's still a student of his said that the other day. You know, I walk in sometimes, I'm like going and Alex is doing the ensemble. I'm kind of like dragged out, but like you can't be. You got to just get up to his level because he's always so go and just that enthusiasm for music. And
I saw Alex Dean 5 days in a row at the top of the Senator the first time I ever saw him.
Oh, okay.
He was performing with Don Franks, and his solos were otherworldly, so I went back 5 times.
He's got a gear, right? He's got an extra gear, you know, that he just can go to anytime he wants. Yeah.
Are there other teachers in your early days that really affected you when you first started?
My high school teacher was Al Harkness, and I found this out just a couple of years ago. He was also Al Kay's junior high teacher.
Holy cow!
Yeah, and he was a sax player. I was a lovely, lovely man. He got such a great. This was at Don Mills Collegiate.
Right, because you're one of those weird guys who was actually born in Toronto.
Actually from Toronto.
Yeah,
did not come here. And Al was a great sax player and had been kind of a jobbing musician. When I was in high school, he was working on his Masters of Performance. So I'd always see him after school, and he's running a high school music program with a lot going on. After school, he'd have the horn out, he'd be practicing. You know, he was a really great guy. And he's the guy who said to me, you know, one of those pivotal moments. I was actually thinking about going into to art and design or music, and I was kind of on the fence. So I guess it was grade 12, and he kind of like just sort of took me aside one day and sort of casually said, "Are you thinking about going into music?" I said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it." He goes, "I think you should. I think that would be good for you." And that was it.
Wow.
You know, just a casual remark that kind of like tipped me over that way. So so Al was great. He passed away a few years ago. He was just a marvelous teacher.
Phil Nimmons, man, he was my guest a couple weeks ago. Whoa. So he's at 96 still doing it. You played for a little while in Nimmons in 9+6, right?
Well, no. I played with the Nimmons.
Oh, Nimmons Now.
Nimmons and 9 Now, yeah.
Right.
And we did Phil's 80th birthday party, 2003. Do I have
16 years ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And made a record as well, which is really great, under the name the Mike Cadeau Tentet, because Mike was the one who put that together. Strangely enough, I just had my phone on shuffle the other day, and some of that stuff came up, and I hadn't listened to it. That's a really cool recording, because we did a bunch of stuff that had never been recorded. And Phil brought in the original parts. They'd only been played on a radio show, so I think there were maybe air checks of them. Brought in the original parts, and they're all yellow, and the tape is like all dry and falling apart.
Right.
So most of the things that we played at that concert and the things on that CD are his original Nimmons and 9 stuff. I mean, we're from the late 50s.
Yeah.
Before it was a big band.
Yeah.
And some of them were never played, never recorded before. So that was a big thrill.
Wow.
Yeah. And Phil is, I mean, everybody loves Phil.
That's right. Now, I know that Boss Brass had a big influence on you earlier in your years, and then you got to play at that reunion concert at the Old Mill.
Yeah, I never thought I'd play with the Boss Brass. And certainly, again, it was Al Harkness, my high school teacher, who introduced us to that. He was a huge fan, and we played, I remember we played some of Rob's charts at what was then the Stage Band Festival, what's now Music Fest, right? Mm-hmm. I'm glad Rob never heard them, because I'm sure we sounded terrible, and he didn't really like high school bands playing
Right.
music. But yeah, that was it. I heard the band live, you know, many times. Like I think from the time when I first started playing, from the time I was about 12, went and heard the Boss Brass whenever I could. I remember hearing them at the old, what was it called? The Forum at Ontario Place.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
those concerts.
Now, are you mid-40s?
No, thank you. I'll pay you later for that. I'm 54.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think of, playing with the Boss Brass after you've heard them since you were a kid. It wouldn't be nerve-wracking because you were a great player, but it must have been a little bit exciting or some butterflies.
It was nerve-wracking. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking. And having Rob, you know, as sax players, we're always, this was like when I did the Bobby Shue thing last week, we're always right there, and the boss is always like standing right over you, right? So they hear every little thing.
It's a different job than most people can imagine.
It was nerve-wracking. It was a thrill. Yeah, it was definitely a thrill. It's funny how stories grow. Somebody did some publicity for me for a concert and said, long-time member of the Boss Brass. I was like, well, I played with them 4 times, so I don't think that's the last 4 gigs with Rob. I don't think that's a long time.
I didn't introduce you as the legendary Andy Ballentyne. Not yet.
No. Oh, good.
Okay. Speaking of legendary, with the Phil Nimmons, he actually you did some studying with him at U of T?
Yes. Yeah. Composition, I guess.
Yeah.
Mostly. Yeah. Which was amazing. Yeah.
And another person you played with, Ron Collier at Humber, the late great Ron Collier.
Yeah. Huge. That goes back really deep, and that's a cool link to Duke Ellington. You know, because of course Ron Ron never liked it when people said this, but I think it's kind of true. He essentially took over for Billy Strayhorn after Strayhorn died as Ellington's right-hand man on a lot of projects, arranger, orchestrator, confidant.
Right. Their live Winnipeg show just before Duke Ellington died was a pretty famous concert.
Yeah, and they worked, and he worked with the piece that Duke wrote for the Alvin Ailey Dance Company, which was called The River, and Ron was orchestrated a lot of that stuff for Duke. So he was, just that link. And it's funny because it seems like I keep going back to, Duke Ellington's music seems to be something I end up doing all the time.
In the game of Jazzopoly, he would be Boardwalk.
Yes.
Duke Ellington.
Exactly. Yeah, so Ron was an amazing influence, a beautiful guy. Did a lot for me, hired me in his professional band right out of school, so that was great.
Now, some of the bands you were in that you did arrangements for and played with, did you do many arrangements for Nojo? Neufeld Occupanti Jazz Orchestra?
Writing for
No,
Nojo.
just playing with them?
Yeah.
And Lila Bialy?
I think I just played with Lila. I don't think I did any writing.
Because some records from the past that I have in my collection, you've arranged, and the arrangements are better than the record. So I won't name which ones. but there was a couple of quite amazing things. And I'm guessing you were fairly young when you did these. It would have been 15 plus years ago. When did you start arranging? When did you start going, rather than just playing, I want to...
Pretty much right from the beginning. I remember I never learned piano. Here's a great story. I'm the youngest of four. I'm the only one who never had piano lessons because my parents were so sick of fighting their kids about piano lessons. They'd just given up by me. I got a pass on a lot of things. And I'm the one who ended up becoming a musician. But there was a piano in the house, and I remember I had this Stan Kenton record. When it's exciting when you don't know anything about music, right? And you just, here's this Stan Kenton 76. And it was a bunch of arrangements. They were all kind of in odd time signatures. And there was this one, I think it was called Time for a Change, that it just caught me. I just loved it. And I just played it and sat at the piano and tried to figure it out. And I think I still have it, tried to write out the chords. I didn't even know what the hell chords were. I was just kind of writing what I heard. So writing was always an interest for me right from the beginning. And then when I was at Humber, I actually did, I guess, kind of like a combined performance writing degree. They didn't really have a formal stream for that, but you could choose, if you chose to do the writing courses, then you didn't do like a final performance recital, and that's the sort of the path that I took. So yeah, it was kind of right from the beginning.
What's your proudest arrangement so far?
Oh, wow.
Is it for your big band?
I'm pleased with that.
That's, by the way, a great name.
Thank
Andy
you.
Ballentyne Large Ensemble.
Thank
Able.
You. I'm glad you think so.
Yeah.
Not everybody thinks it's a great name, but it works. I'm very proud of that record and a lot of the things off there. I've got some that haven't been played yet that I'm pretty happy with. I did one for Jason Logue, an arrangement of I'll Remember April. And that one hasn't been played yet. I think that's going to be a good one. So usually, to answer your question, I guess that it's the most recent one, right?
The new record. Well, a play on words. Unbelievable record. That's why I asked you to come over to have a chat. That record is so full of ideas, so full of brilliant playing, but the arrangements are timeless. They're kind of from all over the place.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Tell me about that approach. How did you decide what to add to or what to put on this record? Because it's all original, right? Except for one.
Yeah, there's one. We do a really old Jerome Kern tune, which we just kind of did in the studio. We played it on a few gigs, and Rob Pilch said, let's play that pretty tune. And then it came out nice. So, and then I found it was in the public domain, so I threw it on the record. It didn't cost me anything. But everything else is original. I'm pretty omnivorous with music, eclectic. Schizophrenic, I don't know what the right word is. I like a lot of different stuff. So, that record, I'm doing tributes to all these random sax players who I happen to like, basically. So it goes from Paul Desmond to John Coltrane, which is a stretch.
Yeah.
And I love both of those extremes. So I think it's just a reflection of my personal taste. And the original idea was that I was going to do this. I was actually going to do some tributes to, artists of the past, like this one is, and then some more current ones to some of the contemporary players I love, like Kenny Garrett and Chris Potter. And I thought I'd have two rhythm sections, like a swing rhythm section, and then, maybe some younger guys to play the more contemporary stuff. And I just realized it was going to be too much. So maybe there'll be volume 2. So I just concentrated on the retro stuff for this recording.
And what about the players you've chosen? Tell me a bit about your band.
Well, nobody good was available. Yeah, I mean, it's just I've been lucky enough to play with Neil Swainson and Terry Clark in a few different situations over the years, and there's just something about those two guys.
And they're locked in together. They do so much work.
Yeah, so much history. And I also find, it's weird, I just find those guys just very comfortable to play with. You know, there's never any feeling of ego or anything. They're sort of all about the music, and it just feels like really safe, you know.
And the
really
dry wit doesn't hurt also when you're in the studio.
Oh my God, Terry. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. And Adrian was involved with this from the beginning, and kind of...
There's another great composer arranger, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've played with Adrian quite a bit in a few different situations.
When did you meet Adrian Ferrugia?
Probably, that's a good question. I'm sure we played together with some kind of band maybe 15 years ago or something like that. I don't go back deep. I didn't go to school with Adrian or anything like that. And then Rob Pilch, to me, because so much of the guitar on this record was coming out of the Jim Hall tradition, both the Jimmy Jufrey thing and the Paul Desmond thing. And, I mean, Rob is just a magician, you know, just like perfect, everything he plays. And, and I played with Rob in a few situations, but not a lot, so I just really wanted to get a chance to play with him, and he was wonderful.
Yeah, and do you have any concerts coming up in the next month or so?
We're at the Rex on November the 1st, not with this band. The problem with getting a band like this is trying to get them all together.
That's right.
And I want to do...
And this is airing after November 1st.
So there you go.
A little later in November, hopefully.
That's with the Sidewinders, which is my soul jazz project. Jason Logan I do. So we do a lot of Lee Morgan and Freddie Hubbard, 60s kind of groove stuff. It's really fun. Neil and Adrian are both on that gig, which will have already happened by the time this airs. And the actual official release for the CD is February the 8th at the Rex, believe it or not.
No, you're not the first jazz artist to release an album and do a party for it a few months later.
And it was partly because of my availability and the guys' availability. I really wanted to have the quintet, have all 5 guys who played, and that was basically the first date we could come up with when there was a venue available and everybody was available. You wouldn't think it's that hard to get 5 guys together after running a big band, but...
That's right. And a lot of jazz venues book at least 2 months or more in advance. So
that's right. Yeah. So that'll be our party, our celebration. That's it. It's a CD celebration.
Now, if people don't buy this record, they may be wondering why I'm asking this, but that photo of you is pretty cute, a little bit mischievous. What's the story behind the photo? That was John McLeod who took that photo?
That's the front
trumpet player John McLeod?
Trumpet player John McLeod. John's really into photography now, and he's always got his camera out at sessions and stuff and just trying new lenses and all of this stuff. And he said, oh, come over and I'll do some photos. So that's actually the front door of his house, the house he lives in. We just came over and took some pictures. And yeah, the whole, I mean, it's
everything about it's great though. The photo's great. The layout on the back, just the graphics, it looks like an old traditional famous record from the 60s or 70s.
Shout out to Johnny Griffith, who it's on GB Records, which is Johnny's label, and he was amazing.
So everybody involved is a musician, even the people that do graphics.
Yeah, the photographer, that's right. And I said, I actually took a picture of the back cover of like a Hank Mobley Blue Note record and said, Johnny, I want it to kind of look like this. And 4 hours later, he sent me the mock-up of that. And he nailed the fonts and everything. So, it's shamelessly retro, right, the whole project. So we went for that design to try to evoke the kind of Blue Note Records look.
Yeah.
And the back cover is, a couple of reviews have already mentioned that, you know, that it tips you off to what it is. And
right.
That was the idea.
Yeah, it actually looks like it's going to sound. When you put on the music, you go, oh, that makes sense.
Good, yeah.
Some people, if they have a vintage look and the music inside isn't that, feels like you've been, ripped off a little bit.
Yeah.
You worked with Carla Bley once? You played with Carla Bley?
I did. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Because there's another incredible arranger.
That was a great concert. Yeah, and we played her big band music, which I don't think a lot of people are really familiar with. Steve Swallow was on bass.
The Big Band Goes to Church is one of my favorite records.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. She brought up George Garzone and Howard Johnson and
Was this at the distillery? Or?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
so I was actually at that
Art of
show.
Jazz,
I was actually
festival.
at that show.
Yeah, yeah. And that was a real thrill. Yeah, that was great.
Who haven't you worked with that you can't wait to get to? Whether it's an arranger or whether it's a fellow musician.
Wow, that's a tough one. You know, I mean, there's lofty, you know, goals that'll probably never happen. You know, oh, I'd love to play with Brian Blade. I'd love to write something and have
The world's happiest drummer.
on it. Yeah, you know, but I mean, that's interesting. I really relate hugely to Brad Meldau's music. And I don't know in what circumstances I'd ever get to play with him, but there's just something about a connection there with him. I actually opened for him. I have a funny Brad Meldau story. Mm-hmm. So I quote unquote opened for him at the Ottawa Jazz Festival, meaning we just played the act before him. So we were doing the sound check at the same time. And
yes, people have to say shared the stage with,
right?
Meaning they opened. Yeah,
it just happens the way the schedule worked out. So he was backstage, and it was this trio with Larry Grenadier on bass, and I think it was Jeff Ballard on drums at the time. And the guys are just sitting there, you know, they sort of got off the plane, they're looking a little dragged out, they're waiting to do their sound check after us, and Brad goes, Larry, can I play your bass? And Larry looks at him like, sure. I mean, these guys have been playing together for years, right? Mm. And he picks up the bass, and Meldau plays the theme from Barney Miller on the bass, like really well, on the upright bass. And Larry Grenadier, and nobody else was watching, so I know they weren't putting on an act, right? And Larry Grenadier goes, what? I didn't know you played the bass. And Meldau says, yeah, I played a little bit in high school. And he hands it back to Larry Grenadier. Larry Grenadier sitting there like with this look on his face, like, what just happened? I've known this guy for probably, you know, decades.
Right? And he's never played theme for Barney Miller on an acoustic bass before.
So I was there. My brush with greatness.
I love that. You got any more?
Okay, here's one. I introduced Margaret Atwood to Jaymz Taylor, and vice versa. Oh. This is hilarious. So we did the Songwriters Hall of Fame thing that CBC used to do, and they honored Joni Mitchell in 2000 and something. Mm-hmm. And Joni Mitchell was there, and she got to say what artist she wanted to have, and one of the ones she wanted to have there was Jaymz Taylor, because she loves Jaymz Taylor's music. So Jaymz Taylor's there, and it's at that, you know, the theater at the convention center. What's that? The Bassett?
Yeah, Bassett Theater, yeah. John Bassett Theater.
So we're sort of all crammed together backstage, and Herbie Hancock was there, Chaka Khan. I can't even remember who else.
Wow.
Yeah, it was craziness. And I was just playing back. They had a big orchestra thing. I played on like 4 tunes or something. So I was hanging around, and there was like a craft service room, and there's like veggies and dip and stuff, and people are in there. So I'm standing in there, you know, getting some broccoli with dip, and I got Margaret Atwood on one side of me and Jaymz Taylor on the other side, and I can see they're kind of like looking at each other, like, do I know this? Is this person? So I just said, Margaret Atwood, right? Do you know Jaymz Taylor? And she goes, it is Jaymz Taylor. I love your music. And Jaymz Taylor goes, Margaret Atwood, I've read all your books. And they go, and I just like backed out of the room. I thought I've done a good deed today. So that's my biggest brush with greatness there.
Love it. Now, are you still at Humber?
Yes.
Since 2002.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this is a hard question for you. It's easy for me to ask. Do you have a couple of favorite students? Some people that have gone on to do things, or someone who's just on the way?
Oh man, a lot. You know, a lot.
Like whatever you say, I know you'll forget a few, or somebody will feel like, yeah.
So apologies.
Yeah.
Just thinking of people who are sort of top of mind who I've seen recently. I mean, I played with Chelsea McBride's big band this week. And
Socialist Night School.
Socialist Night School.
That's an incredible new record from her as well.
Yeah. And she, you know, her sort of drive and her musicality, and she was a private student of mine. in our second or third year or something like that. And we talked a lot about saxophone, but we also talked about composition and arranging. And she's just
I'd like to get her on this vodcast as well, because I don't know anybody that young with that much drive. She is prolific.
It's amazing. Yeah. And just getting it done, getting a big band record, booking a big band tour, which they did last year. I mean, that's insane.
Right.
I would never take that on.
And she got Alex Samaras into a band, who's one of the best singers in town.
Yeah. And
because Alex doesn't want to do normal things. He wants something extraordinary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this really is. Yeah, it really is. It's exciting and new. And then other people like Michelle Willis, right, a former student of mine, and we keep in touch a little bit. It's just great with social media now. You can see, wow. There's a former student of mine, Andrew Kessler, who's in LA. And he every now and then I get a clip of him with this like killer LA studio band, and he's right up there doing that kind of stuff too. So, yeah, apologies to everybody else, I forgot. But yeah, just literally people I've thought about in the last couple of weeks. There's tons of them. Tons of them. Yeah.
And where do you think this is going? Is the amount of students coming in for music increasing, decreasing, staying the course?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I'm not really involved at kind of the administrative level, so I don't see the big picture as well. I worry that the decline in public music education is starting to be felt.
Right.
And what I'm kind of seeing is there's kind of like a bit of a two-tiered system now. So you have these kids who've been, say, studying at the Humber Community School, since they were 8, having like amazing instruction, and they're just like, it's amazing.
Ahead of the game, yeah.
Craziness. And then you have kids who are coming out of a public school system who, in the past would have had a good amount of experience and exposure and maybe some private instruction, and now there's fewer of them, and they're coming in a little bit more behind, or a lot more behind, honestly. So that is worrisome. It's kind of like the disappearing middle class. I came in, when I went to Humber, I was kind of like the middle class. I was not the star. I didn't know a whole ton of stuff. I'd had like a year of lessons with Steve. I came through a good music program, and I'd played in the pit for shows, which is something I still do. That's not going on in a lot of musicals. I played in a big band, played great charts, gone to these music festivals. That is in decline, and that's worrisome.
Yeah. And then as far as clubs and the scene here in Toronto, I guess there aren't too many cities like Toronto, so there's really not a lot of places for people to go. Except to stay here.
Yeah, that's right. And some of them, I've got students in Europe, and some who've made the move to the States. But it's hard to move up. Difficult as the scene is here, it's hard to find anywhere that's better. And as you know, I mean, the New York thing is just crazy cutthroat. And if you think you're not making any money in a club here, go and play in New York and see if you make your subway fare.
That's where your middle class statement rings truest, because you can make big money playing a club in New York, but they only have so many big clubs and so many gigs. And if you're not that well known and you're not sitting in with a band that's well known, you're playing the $50 gig.
Yeah. And a lot of the young players who are kind of there and are sort of struggle, sort of sticking it out, let's say, are doing it with financial support from home, and that's just the fact of the matter. And it's just really hard, if you don't have that. So that's, that's
it's a hard course, especially when most of your students basically dream of getting your job one day, because you've got years and many students. That's hundreds of people hoping to be an educator.
Yeah, that's right. And there is that path, and that path is becoming, the route to that is becoming very different. For me, and maybe I'm the last sort of generation of this, it was establish yourself with a professional reputation, career, whatever, and sort of get hired as a teacher on those credentials. I think now it's got to be, you've got to go for it. You've got to get the master's degree, probably the PhD, probably the doctorate at some point, and kind of keep that foot in the academic world. And I think that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. Tell me about your pit experience for musicians who haven't played in the pit of like a big Mervish production, for example. What is the drill like there? How much rehearsing comes in first? How much earlier to get to the show do you have to be and things like that?
It's a different skill, and again, I have some students who are focused on this because this is a different kind of skill set. And again, it's sort of something that I don't want to say I stumbled into it, but it wasn't my actual main goal. And oftentimes when they're touring shows, you're having one rehearsal and you're playing the first show that night. So those are exciting days.
Right. And they have guys who can really read charts. There's no hacks in that house band.
Yeah. And you get the music in advance, and you're basically, it's kind of a similar model to like a symphony orchestra. You're basically expected to show up and know all your parts. You're not learning any notes on the gig. You're just learning how it's going to be conducted, what the tempos are, how things segue from one into the other. So there's a lot of preparation that needs to go into that. And that's just an experience thing because it's easy to get frazzled, in that situation. It's a very frenetic kind of thing. If it's a local production, then you might have, several rehearsals. But oftentimes these tours, it's one, maybe 3 to 4 hours of rehearsal, a short little sound check, and then you play for an audience.
So this is unlike almost any other job in the world where if you make a mistake, only one customer sees you make that mistake. Here, everybody hears it.
That's right. And the first show feels like a dress rehearsal because you're like, oh, that's how that goes. Oh, this tune went faster than I thought. And you're doing it for an audience. So
you said the word segue and conductor, so this is a good segue. My biggest question for you, because I just saw you play with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra doing the music of Jaymz Bond.
Right, yes, I saw that you were there.
And I saw that people that went to a classical gig applauded twice very enthusiastically for your sax solos, which made me proud. Yay for jazz. What do conductors actually do? I mean, I know certain really Benjamin Zandar and Peter Unjin, like certain people are amazing, but are all conductors that important? Because you've got the music in front of you.
Right.
I'm trying to get my head around how important was that conductor the day that you were with the TSO, or when you're in a pit. How important is that?
It depends on the type of music, and I would say for an orchestra pops concert, honestly, the drummer is pretty much the conductor. So you get, talk about experience, you get Brian Barlow in there who knows how to be, he's kind of like a mediator in a way between the conductor and the orchestra. But honestly, when a drummer's playing, you get the count in and the cutoff, and that's really there. Now, if you're playing Prokofiev or Mahler, conductor is huge,
right.
Huge.
Benjamin Zandar Mahler, the first thing I thought of.
Yeah. What
about in the pits? Because the pits, I guess, there's so much stopping and starting. I guess that's a little bit more of a challenging.
It depends. I mean, some of them, if I do like Phantom, which I played a few times, it's a very orchestral, model. So it's similar, to playing in an orchestra, and you really are expected to follow the conductor. I live these new shows that are more pop-based. There's a lot of stuff on click. So in that case, it becomes less. And oftentimes now you see the conductor is actually playing keyboard.
Right.
So because they have, they'll do some cues, do some important conducting, but there really doesn't need to be a full-time conductor. So yeah, I think it really depends on the style of the music.
Well, you've solved that one for me. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in February.
Yes.
That's a long way away.
I know it is. It'll be here. You'll hear before you know it.
But meanwhile, thank you for making a great record. I'm sure it's going to get a lot of attention.
Thanks a lot, James. Thanks for your support.
Righto. Cheers.
All right.
Andy Ballentyne, gotta love that guy. Hey, next week, it's a short little interview, but it's a good one. It's with Gordon W., the master chef in Berlin, who has the strangest little tiki bar with the most amazing menu. Anyway, you're gonna hear from him next week, and until then, my name is Jaymz B. Please get out there and support great live music, wherever you are.